Okay.
So
That's your ventral side.
it's ventral. So we've got olfactory bulbs, peduncles, and piriform lobes, and the corticofugal and pedal fibers, which would be communicating with the internal capsule.
And then going where?
I don't think we looked that far.
Don't know that far?
Oh, what have we talked about? So, what are fugal fibers?
They're afferent or efferent fibers from the cortex.
Yeah, they're fleeing the cortex like fugitive.
Yeah.
So, what have we talked about when we talk about things?
Well,
like
if it's
these?
fleeing the cortex, then it's either going to be going to the spinal nerves or to the cerebrum.
Put somewhere.
So it's motor going out of the cortex, and that's right. That's what we've talked about. So it's going internal capsule to what's next?
Then it would be the
red nucleus.
no
What's right below the
something
red
pure
nucleus?
something with a P. It's something with a P.
It could be what's before the pyramids.
No, it's not the pyramids.
What's before the pyramids? It's not
It goes
pons?
underneath the crossing fiber. It
The
goes
pons?
underneath the crossing fibers of the pons. Is that am I on the right
Those
track?
are called longitudinal fibers,
Okay.
and we haven't talked about
Okay.
those.
Oh God.
What's right before those? Where does cranial nerve 3 come out? It's not on the list, but you need to.
Was it on the list on the board that you wrote down as you went through? Is it something that's starting with a P?
No. Starts with a C.
The crus cerebri?
Yeah.
Right.
So you come out of the corona radiata, and then they coalesce into the internal capsule.
Mm-hmm.
And then as they go down and are on the ventral surface of the midbrain, we call them the crus.
Mm-hmm.
They duck under the crossing fibers of the pons, as the longitudinal fibers, which we haven't talked about, and then emerges the pyramids. Now, all the time, once they hit the midbrain, then there's always collaterals breaking off to the red nucleus or the reticular formation, or the pons, the pontine nuclei. The olive, if we haven't talked about that, and I don't want you to wander too far over there. But I do want you to understand that it's coming. So those are efferent fibers coming out, and they're going. At the first would be for us. It would be in the midbrain before we start talking about the collaterals. So what about the corticopedal fibers? What are those?
Sensory going into the.
And so where are they coming from? Going to before they go to the cortex.
So would it be the olfactory ones then? Because we're no. Okay.
No. The ones that go to the neocortex, even the olfactory ones, have to relay someplace.
It wouldn't be proprioceptive because the
Although no, the proprioceptive things relay there too. So we
Do
haven't
they?
talked a lot about them yet, but
Okay.
we're going to a lot.
So then the vestibulospinal system.
Well, no, that's going.
That's the other
to,
way.
it's going from the vestibular system to the spinal cord. What's going?
Or no, the
So everything that we talk
not the
about
vestibulospinal.
stops someplace before it gets to the cortex. And I know I've said that multiple times in class already, but we haven't focused on sensory systems too much. But
cerebrospinal.
starts with a T. It's big, right in the
The
middle.
Thalamus?
trapezoids?
The thalamus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So everything that we talk about, which is sensory, has a relay in the thalamus before it goes to the neocortex. Now, it's true that olfactory information goes to the telencephalon, the piriform lobe, without a thalamic relay, but that's not really, I would argue it's not really consciously perceived.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes into your limbic system, so if you smell something noxious, it will, you'll have a visceral response to it.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't know exactly why until you consciously perceive that that's that rotten fish smell, or the casserole I ate the other night that made me sick that I'll never eat again. But your conscious perception actually goes through the thalamus before it goes to the. So everything. So what I want you to do is make it clear to me that you know that stuff going. The corticopedal fibers are coming out of the thalamus because that's everything we've talked about. Now remember that we're trying to strip it down to what not make it so crazy complicated that you get too confused. And then everything going away from the cortex goes by the thalamus and on down to other motor systems.
So how would you have us represent that with continuous pipe
You could
cleaner?
you could take a pipe cleaner and run it from the cortex down to the cruise.
Okay.
Or the
Okay.
something like that, and then come out of your whatever you have is thalamus here, and have it go up to the cortex.
And then we had these here as cranial nerve 1, which would have gotten ripped off when the brain was pulled out.
Yeah.
So then we had the mammillary bodies, which got a little smashed, cranial nerve 2, and the hypothalamus here.
Okay, so it's in between the mammillary bodies and cranial nerve 2, right?
I thought the mammillary bodies were on the hypothalamus.
They're the caudal end of the hypothalamus.
They're the caudal end of it. Okay, yes.
And then the
Yes.
optic chiasm is the rostral border. Roughly.
Okay.
Right. It's
Okay.
So mammillary bodies to optic chiasm
is the
is the landmarks for the ventral surface of the hypothalamus.
Okay.
So we just need to move these further back.
Well, let's see what you got behind them. What's this here?
So that is just structure that's holding it together. So then these are cranial nerve 3.
Okay, so what are they coming out of?
I don't remember.
nerve 3, the tegmentum.
Mhm.
Around that area.
Yeah, it is tegmentum. So then they actually kind of plunk right out of the crus cerebri. So it's
Okay.
the ventral surface of the. And I did, actually intended to have that on the list, but then forgot.
Okay.
But it is tegmentum, so that's where cranial nerve 3 would come out.
Okay. Then while we're here, we've got the pons with the crossing fibers.
Okay.
Pons, cranial nerve 4 coming out.
But you've got it coming out of the dorsal part of right at the junction of the pons and the midbrain.
And then cranial nerve 5 coming out behind that.
Mm-hmm.
And then 6 coming out of the pyramids, which are all of this orange
right
here.
in the sulcus of the pyramids, yeah.
And then 7 coming out more medially than, or I don't know how to exactly describe it, but coming out closer to the midline.
Yeah, well,
than
it's actually a little bit ventral to 8.
Ventral.
Yeah, sorry, a little bit ventral to 8, and 8 being a little bit more dorsal. And then 9 coming out right behind. Is that 9? Where did 10 go?
10
Let's
is
see.
on the side.
So 6, 7, 8,
4,
9.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah, our 10 disappeared.
Your short one, yeah. Because I'm guessing this is your.
That's 11 because it's actually coming out through the. I tried to make it.
11 is
Yeah.
right.
Okay, yeah, so bring it, just
Yeah.
pull it out the side because it actually
Yeah.
runs out the spinal
Yeah.
cord and out.
It's actually
And-
going all the way through the spinal cord back
Okay.
here, but it
actually
didn't,
comes
it got
out,
lost in
okay,
translation.
It comes out of the cervical cord and then it's outside. There is actually an internal
Okay.
column of cells that can contribute,
Okay.
but most of it is outside.
And then 12 coming
Yeah.
out.
So 6 is going to come out of the sulcus of the pyramid, so not right through the pyramids, just
Okay.
as a minor point.
Okay.
Um,
So here between
yeah,
them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then get a 10, which is going to be close to that, and then bring 11 out. And one of the things, 11 probably got named the cranial nerve because it exits with 9 and 10.
Mm-hmm.
So just bring it up, have it come out of the spinal cord out, and then come up and exit it with 9 and 10. And that's kind of just a minor.
I do have a question about
Mhm.
the brain. So we think we bought the wrong type of clay just because it's not sticking very well together and all coming apart. Do you have a suggestion on brand?
I don't know. This is just cheap Walmart clay.
That's what I was gonna go to Walmart.
Okay.
This is my
But it
granddaughter's. So
it does
thinking
seem to
that-
stick.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
tried to buy modeling clay from Hobby Lobby, and it turned out more like Play-Doh than modeling
Yeah,
clay.
Play-Doh doesn't work very well. This cheap stuff works really well. It
Okay.
comes, it's like Crayola.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
But if you can get it to hold together long enough for us to
Okay.
get it done.
Ideally.
And then, and it's already falling apart in my hand. Okay, and then so this was the caudate nucleus on top
Where's
of
the thalamus?
thalamus is right there with the
Okay.
lateral and medial geniculate bodies.
Mhm.
And this was the pineal body here.
Okay.
This was the hippocampus, which was originally more curved than that, wrapping around.
Okay, what does the hippocampus wrap around?
Does it wrap around on top of the thalamus?
Actually,
or-
it kind of wraps around
On
the
the
back of the
sides, right?
thalamus. So
Okay.
if this was my thalamus, it would wrap like this.
Okay.
So if my nose was
Mhm.
over here, then it would wrap like this.
Okay.
So on the caudal edge of it?
Yeah. If you look And we're going to dissect one out. One way to maybe just get it in your head. So if you look at it, these are cross sections going from rostral to caudal. So here's a tip of the hippocampus, here's a tip of the hippocampus, and then you'll notice it's getting thicker here and it's connected here. So what it's doing is sitting like a C like this.
Okay.
And the thalamus is coming back at me.
Okay.
And so that's so.
So it needs to come.
Yeah, so you can
more
make it smaller and wrap it like this, and then here's the caudate up here. So here's the very front of the thalamus. This is called the stria up here, but the caudate's kind of hanging off the front of the thalamus, and like a little tear.
And the hippocampus is coming off the back.
And the hippocampus is behind it.
Okay.
And what I want you to notice here, and the reason I use these pictures is, here's the corona radiata, internal capsule.
Right.
Internal capsule, and so it's wrapping. The internal capsule wraps around the caudate.
Okay.
On its way up, and then it kind of goes actually through the C of the hippocampus. I don't care if you get that, but I want, when you're breathing the internal capsule out, I want you to kind of at least know that it's going, it's cutting through the caudate, lateral to the caudate.
Okay.
And then corona radiata.
And so it'd be lateral to the hippocampus then as well, right?
Yeah, up here it is, but it's kind of funky because you'll notice back here it's actually breaking away. So it's now dove down and it's becoming the cruise.
Okay.
So it kind of ducks under the bottom C.
Okay.
So and we'll talk more about the hippocampus. Hippocampus has been studied a tremendous amount for learning memory, emotional behaviors. It does a lot of different things. So we'll talk about it when we talk about behavior.
Okay. So then this was our rostral and caudal colliculi.
Okay.
The fourth ventricle that ends in the obex, and then our cerebellar peduncles, lateral, middle, and caudal.
Okay, tell me about the peduncles.
The peduncles are where the information relays
So
to
what
and
forms-
away from.
Okay, so what forms the middle cerebellar pedicle?
The middle is the only efferent, correct?
So the middle is where motor from the cortex information
That's
is
where the motor
relayed
plan
to.
comes
Okay.
in.
Yeah.
So we talked about the motor plan comes down to the pontine nuclei,
That's the word.
and then
The P.
Was that-
Yes.
That's actually breaking off of.
Okay.
What that is the longitudinal fibers that duck under the crossing fibers go up, hit the pontine nuclei, and then they'll come out and cross to the other side. So that's the plan. Okay, so that's forming the crossing fibers, which you have on the bottom. So you could actually bring that up and say, okay, this is the middle cerebellar peduncle.
Okay.
Sorry, what crossing fibers?
The crossing fibers are the pons going
But you've
around
got-
that
Oh,
way.
the purple.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they need to join up with the
So
middle.
that's
With the
so what
peduncles.
those fibers, and there's actually other fibers in there. We're focused on the pontine nuclei crossing fibers because
Mhm.
if I can get you to
Okay.
remember that, because that's the plan.
Okay.
Okay, now we have a plan. What else do we need to know?
Caudal is
waiting
for
line.
Where we are
proprioception.
on
We're in
proprioception.
space, so how does that get to the
Caudal.
cerebellum?
Caudal cerebellar peduncle up
Yeah, and
from
what's the track that will come to
cerebrospinal.
No.
Or it's something.
What do we call it? Where does it start?
I mean, the vestibular spinal is for your head, and then you get your
But
proprioception from the.
Where does that tract start? We name them from where they start and where they kind of end. So it starts in
In the spinal
the
cord.
spinal cord, so we're going to call it spino, and it ends.
Spinocerebellar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I had it backwards.
Yeah, so it's so spinocerebellar in the caudal cerebellar peduncle. Okay, so
Okay.
I've got my plan in the middle, my position coming in my caudal cerebellar peduncle,
Mm-hmm.
and now how am I going to go tell those motor
Rostral.
systems to do it? Out, so the
Rostral.
rostral goes out.
And that would go
From-
back up to
Yeah.
the red nucleus or
Red
the pontine
nucleus, or the
nucleus
thalamus
or the
to
thalamus. Okay.
cortex or down into the reticular formation. But if you can, one, it would be great if you showed on here. But one, I'll probably preach it. You're gonna throw things at me before too long. But if you can get that, the plan comes in the middle, my position comes in the caudal,
Out the
and
rostral.
the output goes
Okay.
out the rostral to tell motor systems that it's okay to move. And that, if you can get that, then you can explain the signs. One, if I lose that, then I have a hard time starting the motor pattern. I have to drive it with my cortex or my red nucleus or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then once it starts, I can't turn it off because I lost that inhibition from the Purkinje cells.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Okay.
So,
So the biggest things change where our corticofugal and corticopedal
yeah. Well,
are.
there's one more thing I want you
Okay.
to do. So the reason I ask you to find Obex is because on the dorsal surface, Obex is roughly the landmark for the end of the medulla.
Okay.
And on the ventral surface, the end of the pyramids is the landmark.
Okay,
for the
so
end of the
that
medulla.
needs to line up
So they
with-
should be close to and register.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we had to expand the pyramid. So originally they were, and then it got messed
That's
up.
fine.
Yeah.
So just,
Okay,
but,
thank you.
Because those are landmarks. And
Okay.
that'll just tell you where.
I'm sorry.
It tells you where you want.
One more
So-
So the fourth ventricle, the obex needs to line up with the end of the pyramids because that defines the medulla.
That's the end of the medulla there. Okay.
We need to change the positions of the hippocampus and the caudate nucleus.
Mhm.
And then accessory spinal, we need to show better that it is
It's
running
coming
along.
come out of the spinal cord and then go along. Because it comes out, goes in the foramen magnum, and then exits with 9 and 10.
Right.
Just probably why it got called a cranial nerve.
And then our 10 disappeared as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to be remaking it anyways with different clay, so we can get that done.
10's a
I just
really
wanna
important
make sure.
nerve, so don't forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I only say that because I study it. It has to be really.
You also wanted to just spread out the optic chiasm and the mammillary bodies on the ends of the
Well, you just
hypothalamus.
no, you're fine. I just want you to recognize that that's
That's our
defines
landmarks.
that's your
Okay.
landmarks for the hypothalamus.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And then cranial nerve 3 I have to make sure.
Oh, lateral and medial geniculate. Those were the other ones I didn't see.
Of the thalamus?
Sorry.
That's part of the thing.
Orange is lateral and pink is medial, and it was coming triangular with the lateral on top and the medial coming a little
Well,
taller than them.
one thing I would like you to do is make sure you understand that where the optic chiasm comes up, it becomes the optic tract, and that optic tract actually lays right on top of the lateral geniculate. I don't know if I have a picture. I could do this because. Well, there's the hippocampus. That's the section. So you can see how it wraps. Here's the thalamus right in here. So here's the hippocampus wrapping. Well, there's a little blib of the caudate hanging off the front of it. So, I wanted to avoid the squirrel phenomenon for me, but I didn't.